Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview, I guess, for a fight that goes down this weekend on the undercard of Chris Smith versus Gilberto Ramirez in Saudi Arabia. Of course, that card is billed as Latino Night, several Latin fighters fighting on the card. And in my opinion, the pick of the undercard would be Jose Ramirez versus Arnold Barboza Jr. Good fight at 140 pounds between, I guess you would say, two top 10 super lightweight contenders. Of course, Jose Ramirez being a former unified champion, WBC and WBO titles. Whereas Barboza, he's been a contender for a long time, but he's never really made the step up to fight for a title. I'm assuming this fight is some sort of final eliminator. Has to be, right? But I like the fight. I think it's an interesting fight. And it's a fight in which I could see going either way for a couple of reasons. I will say this. If Jose Ramirez could rewind the clock and really kind of fight at his full potential, fight at his best, then I think he does win this fight. But Ramirez has been around now for a long time. He's been fighting at the top level of at 140 for a long time. Had hard fights. I think he might be tight at the weight. He was talking about moving to welterweight several years ago. Still not happened yet. So I'm not really convinced he is at the level he once was a few years ago. Still a very good fighter, but I don't think he's fighting with that same level of aggression and hunger, I'd say. That he was a few years ago. Since the Josh Taylor loss, he's won his fights, but I don't think he's been quite as good as he once was. Whereas Arnold Barboza, on the other hand, he's a weird one because this guy's got a record of 30-0 with 11 knockouts, unbeaten. He's been around for a long time, and he's been a contender for a long time. And I have to ask the question: he's been ranked for the best part of 5-6 years. Why has this guy not fought for a world title before now? Are they hiding something with this guy? Maybe he's just got unlucky with promotional issues, but I've been long waiting to see Barboza step up. And sometimes I feel like when a fighter fights at a certain level for too long, they can pick up bad habits, and if they stay at that level too long, those bad habits can become cemented into the fighter's game. Because, without having those step-up fights, you don't really get exposed for those bad habits and they just remain, right? And Barboza to me hasn't really had those necessary step-up fights. He's fought some okay guys like Danielto Zorrilla, Alex Orcedo, Tony Luis, guys like that. He's fought some okay guys, but he's not fought the top-level guys. And in his last fight against Sean McComb, well, I felt he lost that fight. That was a 10-round split decision. And Sean McComb, let's have it right, is nowhere close to world level. Nowhere close to world level. This was a guy who got stopped by Gavin Gwynn just 3 years prior. He's a domestic level type of guy. And Barboza lost that fight. He lost against the trickery of Sean McComb. Tall southpaw. He struggled with that style. I know that style is different to Ramirez's, but anybody close to world level should be beating McComb quite comfortably, I would say. So that was a big red flag for me when it comes to Arnold Barboza. One thing I will say about Barboza, though, that I do like, he's quite versatile in his approach. He can throw punches in combination and get slightly more aggressive. He can throw at a pretty decent output. He can box on the back foot a little bit. He can trade a little bit. He's one of those fighters that can do a bit of everything, but he doesn't necessarily do any one thing especially well. He's just kind of well-rounded. And I think stylistically in this fight with Ramirez, I think his best hope would be to try to box and move and spam the long punches, stay busy with the jab and the straights, and try to keep Ramirez at arm's length, try to make him chase the fight. Because Ramirez hasn't showed that same level of dynamism since the Josh Taylor loss, in my opinion. He hasn't shown that same level of aggression and even power, I would say. Because again, maybe he's struggling at the weight. Maybe he's just flat out seen better days. So yeah, I think that Barboza should be boxing in this fight. But Barboza, he can be dragged into a bit of a tear-up at times. He does hold his feet when he gets confident. And that's going to give Ramirez a chance to land that big overhand right, the left hook, and work that body. It's an interesting one for me. I'm looking forward to this fight. I would like Ramirez to win. I've always had a lot of respect for Jose Ramirez. I think he's acquitted himself well in recent years. He's fought a good level of competition, for a long, long time now. He's fought a lot of top contenders. Comey, Jose Pedraza, Josh Taylor, Victor Postal, Maurice Hooker, Jose Zepeda, Antonio Orozco, even a guy like Amir Imam, who was a big prospect at one point. The guy's fought a lot of good competition in recent years, and I like the guy's style. When he's on his A game, he's pretty good. He's pretty solid. He's world class, and I think he's entertaining. He's more entertaining than Arnold Barboza, in my opinion. And I'd like to see Jose Ramirez get one more shot at a world title if he's going to stick around at 140. And should he beat Barboza, I think he'd certainly deserve one. Especially when you consider some of the scrubs who have had world titles at 140 recently. Guys like Rolly Romero, for example. Albert Puello, who's not a scrub, but, not as deserving as a guy like Ramirez. Even a guy like Jose Valenzuela. These guys are getting world title shots, but not Ramirez, who lost in an undisputed fight. And a fight in which he did well in against Josh Taylor. He got dropped twice. But, second half of that fight, he really came back into it. And Josh Taylor was hanging on a little bit. If it was old school times, 15-rounder, I think Ramirez would have won that fight. But yeah, I digress. I think it's a good fight. I'm kind of unsure on how to lean, where to lean to in this one, though. Again, prime for prime, head to head. Ramirez to me is a better fighter. I know he's more one-dimensional, but he does what he does better than anything that Barboza does. But Barboza now is probably got more in the tank. They've had the same amount of fights at 30 fights. They're the same age at 32, but Ramirez has had much harder fights. He's been fighting at world level for a lot longer. Well, for many years now. And I think he's tighter at the weight in general, so for me that makes this one more competitive. And it makes Barboza a very live dog, especially considering, like I said, he has some variety to his style. He can do a few different things. Plus, he's quite fit. He throws a lot of punches. And, when you're fighting a guy like that, and you're maybe slightly past your best, maybe 1 foot's out of the door, it's probably kind of a bad fighter to fight, because you can get, outworked and mugged kind of thing. But, I'm going to kind of go with my heart on this one. I'm going to say Jose Ramirez wins this bout. I'm going to say he's going to win it on a competitive points decision. Barboza's shown a pretty good chin in his career. So I don't think he gets knocked out, but if anybody's going to score a knockout, I'd assume it would be Ramirez. But I'm going to go Ramirez on points in a close-ish fight, a competitive fight. I think he's going to land the more telling blows. I think he's going to be the aggressor. I think he's going to do a lot of work to the body. And I think the judges will prefer the aggression of Ramirez. But, interesting fight. On a good card as well, by the way. It's a decent card. Like I said, the main event, kind of a unification fight at cruiserweight. Chris Billum-Smith versus Gilberto Ramirez. I've done a prediction for that fight already. I've got Ramirez. And aside from that, you got William Zepeda on the undercard. He's fighting Tevin Farmer for the interim WBC lightweight title. That should be a foregone conclusion, but I like watching Zepeda fight, so that's always good. Oscar Collazo is on the card, who is a minimum weight fighter, who a lot of people rave about. He's fighting knockout CP Freshmart, who's a long-time champion in those weight classes. That could be a good fight. Oscar Duarte, he's fighting Botajon Akhmedov. Now, Akhmedov versus Duarte could be a sleeper fight. That could be a very good fight, because Akhmedov's record doesn't look good on paper. He's 10-3, 9 of those 10 by way of knockout. He's a very aggressive fighter, very fun to watch. But you look at his losses in his career. Two are controversial. He lost to Mario Barrios in 2019. That was for the WBA regular title, I believe. Very controversial fight. Many people felt Barrios lost that fight. He also lost to Alberto Puello a couple of years ago, again, I believe, for the vacant WBA title. And again, I felt Akhmedov outworked Alberto Puello, and he should have been a world champion. He did also lose to Kenneth Sims by a majority decision. I've not seen that fight, so I can't tell you whether that fight was a bad decision or not. But I certainly felt he beat Puello and Barrios. So his record's a bit deceiving. And Oscar Duarte, of course, power-punching Mexican from Chihuahua, beat Jojo Diaz in his last fight. He's most known for getting knocked out by Ryan Garcia, but, he's an aggressive guy as well with power. Akhmedov versus Duarte should be a really good fight. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty good card. Underrated card in my opinion. But anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy, peace.